And look at that. We're live. It's like magic. Yay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This is Goal Chat Live. I'm Debra Eckerling. I'm the author of Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals, and founder of the DEB Method. And every week on Sunday night, we have our Goal Chat Twitter chat. And then on Monday, I invite a guest in to dive deeper into the topic. And I'm excited because today I get to interview my friend Jeff Pulver. Among other things, Jeff is an internet pioneer and founder of lots of things. And internet pioneer, voice over IP, go-to event guy, and so much more. So Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself better? And my 140 conference guru, co-producer friend. How's that?
It's a wonderful. I think it's good enough. It's all good.
And and founder of the new Pulver Redo, which is it's global community school.
And it truly is a global community school. It's a redo of Pulver.com, and it's like both Pulver Redo and Pulver EDU, depends upon the mood, and it's an opportunity for people to connect and to bring their subject matter expertise to life. And so, where else in the world could you go to actually teach for an hour, inspire people, learn for an hour, be inspired, and they're all live and interactive in real time in the flow of the now. And so it's we have classes 6 days a week, and it was my own frustration going on YouTube and attempting to learn something and not being able to ask questions. That was the core inspiration to do it better. So our classes are all live, and they're very intimate these days. And so it gives you both the teacher, the educator, and the student an opportunity to connect and have meaningful conversations.
And so you're like longtime communicator. I mean, I know that's an understatement. We met because you were doing a 140 conference in LA, and I decided I wanted to speak there.
Yes, you have a method of making sure that if you want to do something, you get it done.
Oh yeah, I am me. But what had happened was, and this was at the Comedy Store. So this was what, 2009 maybe?
2009ish, yes. It was a Comedy Store when we were on Sunset Boulevard, because I was doing a series of mini 140s leading up to the 140. If it was 2009, it meant that we were at the Kodak Theater. We were at the.
So it might have been 2010.
That was 2010. It was not at the Kodak Theater. That was just the first. I was there the year before.
Okay, so I might not have met you until after you've done the second one. What is 140 conference? Why don't you explain that? And then I'll finish this lovely story.
There was a time when Twitter was new, when we were restricted to only have 140 characters in a tweet. And back in those days, as a result of it, I thought it was interesting if we could actually learn how the world's changed. And so I put together a conference. I am an early investor. I could say I was an early investor in Twitter, but I still am an investor in Twitter. And back in 2008, ending 2008, back in the early days, back in the good old days, the year ended with, if you will, a fight between CNN. Remember who was basically going for the first 1 million followers? The race for 1 million followers. It was between CNN and
celebrity person.
Maybe,
right?
Yeah. It was somebody, yes. So somebody's going for 1 million, and I thought this is bullshit. That if all Twitter is for a sign of a popularity contest, makes no sense. So when I was at South by Southwest in March of 2009, I decided, you know what, I want to do a conference. We'll call it the 140 conference. I have to give out a shout out to my friend Kevin, who was the inspiration with a name, because I was looking for a name to call it. Kevin Slavin was actually the one who gave me the inspiration for the name of the event. Kevin Slavin, and basically what I didn't realize was how disruptively powerful Twitter was. That when I looked at it, I came up with 38 different types of businesses where Twitter's impact was global, not local, but very global. And what I was very, very, very much an early fan of is the back channel. So it was Ashton Kutcher. I believe the race to 1 million followers was between Ashton Kutcher and CNN. to see who can get to 1 million followers first, and CNN lost. And I thought, okay, let's do it at a conference. So I did it in June of 2009. The event held. It took about 3 months to put together, and it was instantaneously an event that had people from all over the world come together. Now the rule was, because after many years of producing conferences where people spoke for 20 minutes at a time, an hour and a half breakout sessions, enough of that. So I don't care where you came from, you have 10 minutes to talk, just 10 minutes. If you can't say it in 10 minutes, you're not going to do it at 140. And we had people fly in from all over the world, from India, from Qatar, from Israel, from across the United States. We had folks from Australia. We had folks, really, you name the country, and there's a good chance it might have been represented. We also broadcast the whole thing live. And what was magnificent was just who came and where they came from. And it was a cult-like event in the sense people came from all over the world. They were very happy to fly for 30 hours and speak for 10 minutes. Like, okay. And while that event was taking place, I was very fortunate that Jeff Hazlett, who at the time was the chief marketing officer of Kodak, he was at the conference, and he said, "Hey, would you like to have your next event in Los Angeles?" I said, "Okay, where?" He offered me the Kodak Theater. That's where the Oscars were. And so we ended up with a 2-day run at the Kodak Theater. I had no idea going into the New York City event that in 2009, the 140 conference would travel the world, literally. And I ended up hosting it in New York City, in LA, in London at the O2, at the small arena at the O2 in London, and in Tel Aviv, like all within one calendar year. And it was absolutely surreal. And the back channel was a big thing back then. The idea that we can communicate, you could be live on television, and then in between breaks, you can actually talk to your listeners and actually hear what's going on. And then, of course, in 2010, the really horrific earthquake in Haiti gave another life to Twitter, because all of a sudden Twitter started saving lives, because Twitter became the back channel that united the world. That there was fundraising that took place at the same time when different people from all different countries were in the country of Haiti looking to basically provide medical treatments. The doctors were using Twitter to figure out, can we send these people to the States, or finding help. And it was just a very surreal moment in time. So the 140 conference, the whole concept behind it is, can you take a topic and speak cohesively, speak clearly in 10 minutes? And so I made it a point to have 140 speakers over 2 days. It was a heck of a lot to manage because everyone really just spoke for 10 minutes. And keeping with the theme of theater, we ended up, if you ran over the 10 minutes, I think it was 46 seconds into the theme from Exodus, we start playing the music. And most people took that as a very subtle sound cue to get off the stage. A few people raised their voice louder and louder and louder, and some of them went in the melody of the song until they exited off the stage. And occasionally we'd have to mute someone's microphone. But it was all in good taste. But the 140 conference provided an opportunity for the world to come together, because we were not only trending on hashtags, we were sharing knowledge. And it was really 4 basic core principles that I learned when I was young, growing up on amateur radio, that I took to Twitter for anyone who wanted to understand how to be more successful, more effective in communicating, is to listen, to connect, to share, and engage. Those 4 words, whether you're 13 years old using amateur radio and finding out that you're not very interesting because nobody wants to talk to you. So you have to learn to listen to people. You learn to connect, to share and engage something. Because back in the 70s, when I was using amateur radio, most of the people I'd hear on the radio were men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they would complain about their jobs and talk a little bit about their family. And let's just say that I was gainfully unemployed because I was in school and I didn't have a girlfriend. So we had nothing in common, really. And so I had to think of other ways to be interesting to these people, to have conversations. And when people started coming to Twitter, I share the same basic 4 words. And I think that is key to having any successful marketing strategy. Anyone who's doing anything online, it's one thing to broadcast, it's another thing to listen. And so Twitter basically, for me, became a great listening platform. Being able to have meaningful conversations, bring people together, And it was proof positive that one voice could be heard around the world. That all, because the amplification was almost, it was anonymous at point. That if somebody tweets and someone else retweets it and someone else retweets it, all of a sudden words and messages can be heard and can be seen. So it did not matter how many followers you had on Twitter. As long as you had one person hearing what you had to say, your words mattered a lot. And I found that there's intimacy that you could find, and that unfortunately in the modern era of social media with all the artificial intelligence and everything else, it was very hard to have those moments. But in the early days of Twitter, being online, walking down a beach and celebrating sunrise and tweeting a sunrise and randomly connecting with somebody on the other side of the world celebrating sunset at the same time in real time was magical, because there was no delay that if I was tweeting right now and someone else tweeted, we'd see each other on the hashtag. And then Twitter decided, nah, we don't have to see tweets in real time. That doesn't matter so much. So algorithms came into place. But it was a 140 conference, and having the opportunity to bring it to LA is one thing, but then curating it, like who do I invite to speak, and how do you go through the process of deciding what is the point beyond having the event itself? What messages do you want to share? Who are you going to invite to talk? And how do you figure those things out? So yes, we met at a 140. and these days, by the way, if I had to do the 140 conference all over again, have to do I really call it the 280 conference? I don't think so.
Well, I missed the first one at Kodak. I missed at the Comedy Store between the first one and the second one in LA. And after that, every couple of years, I'd be like, Jeff, we need another one in LA. Okay, Dad, let's do another one in LA.
And the last one we did was in November 2016.
Yes, and we learned about doing events not with news cycles.
Yes, right. Yes.
But the reason that I wanted to go back to your roots is you kind of recreated that sort of spirit, and you've been doing events for years, bringing people in tech together, basing them on music, everything that you've done in real life in the 90s and the 00s, you've really rejuvenated in this age of connecting. And one of my favorite events that I talk about all the time, because I always like to talk about the importance of networking, is your Today is Tomorrow Zula.
Yes.
So before you go into that, you're like broadcasting how many days a week now?
Let's see, 5 to 6 days a week, depending upon how you count.
Depending on how you count. And I just love how you just jumped in. Okay, we're at home, but we still need to connect. So
we need to connect so much more. There's a disproportionate. If you look at the math behind it, I believe that the higher the quotient of captivity, the more we need to connect on the outside. It's both linear and geometric, and that there is if anytime you travel to a location, there's a finite number of people that you can meet. Because if you're on a premise at a facility, wherever you turn, you're going to see a group of people, but not everybody. And it's very hard for you to meet 30 people simultaneously in a meaningful way. For that matter, even connecting with one person is hard because everybody's always in a rush to go to the other place.
Right.
And so if you can create a magical location that people come with the intention to be kind to each other, to respect the energy that's present, and to meet each other, to create heartfelt relationships, not so more strategic than tactical, you could change the way that people connect. And so during 2020, I was able to create a new type of social network, a type of social network where there are no web pages. It's not about how many friends you have. It's not about how many likes you get on a post. In fact, we don't even enable non-real-time communication. The social network only exists for the finite amount of time that people are online together following these rules. And it's created a very endearing, a very special experience. And it was inspired by this idea that I had a long time ago to connect with people based on passion and not what they quote unquote do for a living. And that creates, so a Zula, in Aramaic, a Zula is a comfortable place to hang out and be. And so on Tuesday evenings, evenings for me on the East Coast, 6 p.m. For the West Coast, and I guess it's now 12 noon or 1 in the afternoon in Australia. I call the Today Meets Tomorrow Zula, because historically we've been able to bring people together from the Americas, both North America and South America and Central America, and bring people together and connect with friends and potential friends in both Australia and across Asia. We've had people join us from Japan, from Sri Lanka, from let's see, India, and we've had some sleep challenge friends from Israel drop by. And it's really a wonderful opportunity for people to connect. And I always ask people, what is their passion? And so, particularly in these days where not everybody has a day job, people still have a passion usually. The first time visitors to the Zula feel almost obligated to say whatever they do for a living, that is their passion, until we unpack it. And sometimes people realize, no, I really don't like that at all. What I'm really passionate about is watercolor painting, but my day job is this. And but that whole idea of passion-based networking came aboard because in the 80s, when I was starting out my first business, I felt compelled that I had to join a hyper-local networking group near my office, where I had an office on Long Island. And when I walked in, I paid like, I don't know, for me, even $200 was a lot of money to join in a group that I didn't think I needed to be part of, but I was told by too many people, yes, you should join. So I walk in, and back then I was a software developer creating financial software for people who did portfolio management for bonds, fixed income securities. And so I walk in not believing I'll have any potential customers there, but I walk in because a friend of a friend was running it. And so when I walked in, I literally met because they only had one of. So there was one accountant, one general attorney, one office supplies person. Separate was an office copying machine person. Separate was the person who was a real estate agent. And you had different people, and there was an insurance person, and you had people from each different category groups who were all there. And to all those people, I was a new business and I was a lead. That's all they looked at me as, was a lead. And I looked around the room and I said, why am I here? Now, had the person who was selling office supplies told me they were into photography, I actually may have had a conversation that lasted till today. If the person who was the accountant for the group told me they're an amateur radio operator, we'd still probably be friends today, because all of a sudden we'd stop talking about accounting, we'd stop talking about office supplies, and we'd talk about things that I care more about, which are those passions. And so I have found that passion-based networking provides an opportunity to build bridges to future relationships, whether it's professional, to partner with someone, to collaborate, or for that matter, just to build friendships. And because as you get older, it's harder and harder to make new friends. And being able to bring people together and maintain a safe space and respect the space and the time that we have together has been really rewarding. And it's been a lot of fun. And there have been years in my life that have been very blurry, because based on hosting so many events, without exaggerating, I've met for many years more than 10,000 people a year. I do not remember the names of most of these people because it's blurry, and it's just because of how those things happen. But what I can tell you is one of the blessings of 2020 for me was the opportunity to get to know a subset of the subset of the subset, but quite well. People that I now consider friends, people I trust, people who I enjoy spending 75 minutes with, and I enjoy having the opportunity to connect the dots with. And that provided not only a salvation, but it provided purpose. And so that Tuesday wasn't Blur's Day. Tuesday's actually Tuesday. And I know that we have an opportunity to bring people together. And then because we're a community, when people have different things to announce, I go to the group and I ask people if they have any personal announcements, and we go around the room and we share that. And so it started off with, so we have Tuesdays, we have the Today Meets Tomorrow Zula. On Thursday mornings, East Coast time at 8:30 a.m., we have I call it the East Coast Zula. And we do have a few people from the West Coast. Somehow they're up at 5:30 in the morning. They're checking in with us. And it's mostly East Coast US with a few West Coasters, as well as people in Europe and the Middle East. And that also has been providing a rewarding opportunity for people to connect. Not so much even for me, but for the people who be coming to the Zulas, for them to meet each other. And that geometric progression of how many people you can meet at any moment in time is pretty rewarding, because it's fun for me to watch the after effects of where people connect and how they connected. And some people bring their friends to it. And that all that is free. I mean, there are some people who charge large sums of money, as it turns out, to be part of networking groups. And for me, it's not whether we charge or not, but it's what people get out of it, and being able to create that energetic space of feeling comfortable, being able to speak your truth, and being able to feel comfortable in front of others. And if people abuse that or breach that, we have like a zero tolerance. I have to thank my sister Lauren and our friend Harry for helping to maintain order. But it is a free experience, and so when people don't respect it, we have to be very careful about that trust, because at the end of the day, it is about trust, and it is about connectivity, but it's personal connectivity. And again, in an era where not everybody still has a job, asking people to introduce themselves and tell people what they do for a living creates an uncomfortable situation for some. So by not emphasizing on what you do professionally, but where your passions are, provides a bridge to future opportunities without taking away anything in the process. So it was the Zulas that I hosted that gave me this mission that I needed to start hosting, Bring Back Pulver TV, which I did back in 2005, and actually do a live talk show. So I started doing that on Wednesdays. So these days, let's see, we're the executive producers on Sunday nights of Grateful Goddesses TV, Grateful GGTV. Grateful Goddesses is hosted out of Chicago by my cousin Karen. Lauren is the executive producer of that show. I may take credit, but it's Lauren does that whole show. And then Mondays, what do we have? Ask the Oracles on Mondays with my friends Monty and Amy, and that's been a lot of fun. That's 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 Eastern, and that is a fun show. It's there's some people just come just for the entertainment value, because it's just fun to listen to questions being asked, have the opportunity to answer them. And then Tuesdays right now is the Today Meets Tomorrow Zula. Wednesdays is the Jeff Pulver Show. Now, it took me a long time, by the way, to come up with the name of that show, because I danced around the topic, because I was calling it the soundtrack conversations. When I looked at television history, I realized that the most successful TV talk shows had the name of the host in the name of the show. So it took a long time, but I finally decided to call that the Jeff Pulver Show. And then, during the summer, I couldn't help but embrace my passion for live music. And so I launched a site called Grafton Street TV. So Grafton Street in Dublin is a world famous street that artists from across Europe, and for that matter, across the world, come to busk, to basically play their music in the hopes of getting some type of tip for the music that they're putting out. And so Grafton Street TV became an onboarding site for, we're not American Idol or America's Got Talent, or for that matter, we're not The Voice, but we're actually global. And what was been amazing is how many people are so talented around the world looking for the next big break. And so we accumulated a lot of talent, and then I needed a venue, an imaginary venue, to start hosting people to where this talent would perform at. So I actually was Googling Chicago for names of places where people could hear like folk music or coffee house music. And one of the most popular spots I could find from Chicago was a place called Mom's Place. And I said, I'm not going to call this Mom's Place. So we put it on Jeff's Place. And so Jeff's Place was born as the go-to destination for this make-believe stage where people come and play live. And what's been amazing is as each week goes by, the talent has been increasing. We actively have artists play approximately 20-minute sets. They come in from America, Canada, and Ireland. That's mostly where most of the artists have been from. And the people who come, they stay. It is absolutely mind-boggling. We did a New Year's afternoon. Well, depending on where you were in the world, there was New Year's Eve morning, New Year's Eve afternoon, New Year's Eve, depending. And that was a marathon 4.5-hour show. We had during the 4.5 hours, we had 120 people who came to the audience. We had 9 performers, and the average person stayed for 134 minutes, which meant the average person stayed for over 2 hours in the audience listening. And what's so different about the vibe that we have is that the audience, a lot of people in the audience are themselves singer-songwriters. And the audience shares a lot of love in the chat. And they're listening. I mean, how often do you ever remember going to a place where somebody's performing in the lobby of a hotel, playing at a coffee house, and you're ignoring them because you're there to talk to somebody? You're not there necessarily to listen to the music. Or if you're even at a social event and there's someone playing on stage, no, you're ignoring those people performing because you're there to talk to and meet with the people that you're at the social event with. And so to create a coffee house where artists magically appear from all over the world, where it's our own hyper-local version of, let's say, Live Earth or Live Aid for people old enough to appreciate what Live Earth was or Live Aid was, where we just take it for granted that people beam in from all over the world. And as I tell the people who come to the show, imagine you walking into a coffee house, you take a look, you look to the left, what you see is a small stage, big enough for a microphone. Behind you is a 4-track mixer. In front of you are 50 wooden, almost comfortable chairs, but they're magical because when you sit down, everybody gets a front row seat. And there is that intimacy between the artist and the audience where when people start to cry, when people are singing because they're connecting with the words, you know that energy and that magic is there. So that's become Thursdays for me. That's Thursdays at Jeff's place. And because we were just not busy enough, of course, Pulver EDU got launched. And so we had our first month of classes in December, and we're still in alpha. Classes resumed on January 7th. I'm actually doing 21 classes between tomorrow, which I guess is January 12th, and March 23rd. I'm on slate to do a whole series of classes. I'm doing what I call Business Mondays and Personal Growth Tuesdays. Tuesdays, it's the Conversations with Jeff. I have a different subtopic under the idea of conversations with, like for tomorrow, for example, I'm talking about personal reboots or how to control or delete your life. And really the idea is that the topic is set, and then based on who's in the class, the conversation will shift to the needs of the people who are taking the class and lead by example in terms of some of my own life experiences and how that turns into real-time material for those who want to take class. And so and yeah, on top of that, we're actually introducing now. We actually haven't announced this yet, but we picked out of the artists we met last year. I now have a Rising Stars program. So for Rising Stars 2021, we have I think 4 or 5 artists we'll be doing nighttime events for, where we're going to ticket them and provide a venue, same venue, but that'll be Jeff's place at night. I guess we have to wear sunglasses or something. And so it's going to be a chance for them to shine. And so it's all about, at the end of the day, in every platform, people are listening, they're connecting, they're sharing, and engaging with each other. Because it's, in a world where not all of us get out that much, if we can do things to increase serendipity and synchronicity in people's lives, if we can do things to help put people in the right place and bring people together who might have a positive influence for other people, that makes everything worthwhile for what I do.
Nice. Wow, those are so many different mouthfuls. When you were talking before, I want to go back to the Zulas because you were talking about the value of the passion-based networking, and all of my January shows are community-based. So we're talking more about events today and then networking next week and social media the following, because they all work together in sort of connecting and reconnecting and interconnecting. But when you were talking about how when you were at that first meetup and you said if they only mentioned ham radio or photography, you would have had a conversation. I remember when I met you at the Comedy Store, you were talking about ham radio. And do you remember the first thing I said to you?
No, do tell me. I don't want to say yes and no.
I said, you did ham radio in high school, and when I was in high school, all my friends were the ham radio guys. I didn't do ham radio.
I remember that part.
So it was just by virtue. I said, so if we went to high school together, we would have been friends. So we should be friends now. And
Absolutely.
that was really the first conversation that we had 10 years-ish ago. So
you see, that's the point, right? Because if I would have spoken about some other esoteric topics, you don't have that common denominator. You need that thread, right? If you're going to thread a needle to start a conversation, you want a good conversation starter. So starting with someone's passion or common passion, or at least something in common with a passion, provides that edge that gives you the chance to connect with somebody in a meaningful way. It's because I wear amateur radio very close to me, and during the pandemic, one of the other benefits I've had is I'm now back on the air. I've actually, I had about 26,000 conversations last year, which is maybe not a lot but for me it was a lot because I had not been on the radio for many, many years, and I noticed on my log I had about 26,000 conversations in 2020.
Wow. No, I'm not the least bit surprised. The other thing that you mentioned before when you were talking about the large scale events when you would meet 10,000 people in a year, that's really when I talk networking goals back in the old days when you could leave the house, I would say, do 1 or 2 networking events a week, meet people, and then continue those conversations. And now I say you can do at least twice that because you don't have travel, you don't have parking, and there are so many more accessible ways. But it really is about having those, not just meeting people, but going to events, connecting with people, and then continuing those conversations.
Well, it's about meaningful conversations and taking advantage of the moments that you have and extending them so that some moments are just moments and other moments can last forever, in the sense that you can actually change your life. I mean, I do believe the next person you meet can change your life. You can be inspired, you can be connected, you can actually get an aha and realize that this is what I should be doing. And that it's sometimes you need to hear it from other people because you don't hear it for yourself. And for me, look, most of the time at my own conferences, I hung out in the hallway. I got to better know people by the hallway of my own conference, but that's also because I had a habit occasionally, if people were not on message, I might have thrown someone off stage once or twice. So because I had a rule that you could not pitch from the stage. I mean, I had a very clear delineation between people who were there to share vision and there are people who are there to sell. So I had asked for everybody who's selling to be selling from their booths or selling from their sponsor suites, not to be selling from the stage, because I'm looking for people with vision to inspire others, at least from a technical perspective. And so maybe once or twice, I might have heard a sponsor that had a $10 billion business unit who was there, and I literally threw them off stage. And that may have happened in the fall of 1998. And ever since then, for all the years I hosted conferences, I made it a point not to be in the main room most of the time because I didn't want to have to throw anyone off stage. And so it was hard.
Oh, it was preservation of the other people.
Yes. Because I had this thing that, I did not sell sponsorships. I did not like the idea of selling a keynote. If you were from a very large company and literally worked in the mailroom, but you had a great vision for the future of communications, I wanted you rather than the chief technology officer of your company. And that ran aground once when 3Com, I was once at a technical meeting, and I met a guy who wasn't the mailroom person, but he was a low-level engineer, but a great visionary. And I invited him to give what was called the industry perspective at my conference. 3Com gets wind of it, and they think, we're speaking. I guess we have to be a sponsor. Now, they didn't understand because I think everyone else is pay to play. So all of a sudden, 3Com one of the sponsors of the conference. But then they said, but of course, that person you want to speak can't speak. Our chief technology officer has to speak. But then I realized that the CTO was aware of voice over the IP technologies, but wasn't really like doing it. And anyway, it came to a moment where it's like, if our CTO can't speak, we can't sponsor. And I was about to say, okay, but I relented, and so I had their CTO talk, and I had to make sure that their CTO didn't sell anything, which let me tell you was he didn't sell anything. He was a visionary. He just was in areas of tech that I wasn't that familiar with. But it was there. But the idea of having hallway conversations and maintaining and having fun. The other thing I learned about the conferences is that I learned how to take having fun seriously. That you can be very serious, and I could tell you that during the day, some people who are very focused on topics dealing with technology and dealing with protocols and dealing with innovation thought that their company or they themselves had figured out the solution. And it never broke into fistfights, but you could tell people were very tense about their ideas. Well, I learned that if you have a party on the second night of the conference and you maybe bring in a band that was performing on the radio, you could have fun. And whether you choose to drink soda water or vodka, I didn't care. There was a chance for people to relax, to listen to good music, and to connect. and not around the tech, but around the music. And so music has always been a thread at all the events that I've done, because it provided an opportunity for people to connect and to engage in a different kind of way and to have fun. And for me, ultimately the conferences I hosted was like the high school reunion I wanted to go to, as opposed to the one that I've always avoided, because I maybe didn't have the most fun time in high school. And over time, the Von conferences that I hosted, I actually always look forward to hosting them for a chance to bring back people together who I have not seen in a few years, and to provide a platform for people to share their ideas. And I really did not discriminate whether you're really a tiny little company just starting out or a super big company. If you have ideas that I thought were worth sharing, I had them on the main stage. And at the same time, the hallways is what mattered to me. And then whenever I would talk at other people's conferences, other than my own talk, I usually hung out in the hallway, because I could justify flying around the world to create meaningful connections. And so if I spent the entire time inside the conference rooms, how the heck do I meet people? And the other thing about the events is that I learned that at receptions, it's nice to have quiet rooms. It's nice to have places where you can actually hear the people who are talking to you and see them. At South by Southwest and many other places where it was festive with parties, they had a thing for very loud rooms and very dark rooms. So it's very hard to see the people you want to meet and hear what they have to say. So I got this idea to actually do the reverse and have places which were chill. So having a coffee house to listen to live music is really a logical extension of wanting to host an event where you can talk if you want to talk, but don't interrupt the musicians. And at the same time, take in some good music or take in some good conversations. And so conversation, listening, connecting, sharing, engaging across the map is a common theme. And if you want to curate a great event, provide a way for people to meet each other. So the blurriness happens when you're hosting the event. You could have 100, 200 plus speakers, and you want to be everything to everyone. But I learned a lesson. You have to focus on what you think is important, because if you try to go to the extremes, you end up being nothing to no one, including yourself. And so you find those points. And so when you host a conference, so there are times when I'd be in the front of the room hosting the conference. There are times I'd be in my own audience. And a lot of times I'd be in the hallways, chatting with people, walking my own exhibit floor, looking for new technologies, looking for emerging tech, and meeting people. I mean, sometimes the most meaningful conversations I had at some of the larger tech events was in the airport when I landed, either before or after, actually pre-flight or after the flight, like when going to South by, or for that matter, some of the larger tech events I went to. It was the airport conversations I had, because there are people who could not go anywhere. It's not like they had meetings to go to. We all had a flight to catch. We were perhaps on the same flight. Twitter was happening when all of a sudden I see a tweet that at Jeff Pulver is sitting across from me, right? When I'm sitting actually waiting to get on an airplane. So about a minute later, I go over to the person and say, I waved to them. It said hi. You could have just said hello. You didn't have to tweet. That was sitting opposite you.
Well, now we know how awesome hallway conversations are. What do you think is the equivalent to a hallway conversation in virtual land?
Depends upon whether or not it was a hallway conversation with one person, two people, or seven people. Because there's different levels of intimacy. The reason why the hallway conversations work for me is because there's a randomness to it, that you set the intention that you want to meet new, interesting people. You don't know who they are. You're open to meeting them. And then there's something that connects, that creates the bond for the conversation to continue to another time. So for me, the hallway conversations are best virtualized inside the Zula when we do the breakout rooms. It's not because you're actually talking amongst yourselves about what you want to talk about, but if I pull a topic, you get to hear how people react to that topic, and you realize, gee, I actually have things in common with this person, and they're interesting, and so I want to follow up. I'll send them a direct message, and maybe we'll find a way to connect after this is over and talk about stuff that we want to talk about. And that's been happening, and so it's one of those unintended consequences. There's a law of unintended consequences, like there's a law of very many other things. And so the the idea of you bring people together and the magic that they're able to create because of what they did to get there is very special.
So can we talk like technical aspects for a few minutes?
Sure.
What someone is watching this and they want to start doing their own events. What is the first and second and maybe third step?
Why? Why and why?
Why, and why? That's one of my
So
favorite words as well.
What, where, why, and how of the event that you want to create. Just because you want to create an event, what is the inspiration? What is the purpose? What is the intention? When will it be? Does it have to be tomorrow? These days, one of the things to keep in mind is that in 2021, people are non-committal. And that maybe usually means no, but maybe could be yes. Depends upon if you're inviting someone to speak or somebody who you want them to attend. Also, what is the return? I'm not saying that you have, even if you're doing a free event, like for my purposes, I'm all about the database. So I will host events where someone's trying to figure out, why am I doing it? Well, A, maybe I'm passionate about the topic. B, maybe I'm passionate about the topic and I want to build a database. C, maybe I'm passionate about the topic, want to build a database, and I then want to monetize the database. And so ultimately, it's about community. You see, the secret to life, the sun that empowers most of us, is community. And so when you understand that you're trying to build a community so that you could then connect the dots proactively, it's a key. It's not non-obvious, but so if you want to do an event, I'm not saying you have to justify it, but understand why you're doing this, because when you start getting frustrated and start pulling your hair out saying, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? You know why, because you wrote it down and you are on mission. So you have an understanding implicitly, this is what my purpose is. This is why I'm doing this. Understanding your target audience is key. Because so if you understand that you're doing an event and you're looking for people who are interested in the future of communications, that's wonderful. But one of the questions that comes up is, okay, well, how are you going to attract these people? What are you going to do to connect or either build a community, leverage an existing community, or connect to other communities to bring them into this event? So knowing your mission, understanding your purpose will help drive your marketing ideas in terms of who am I targeting? Am I targeting people that I know? Am I targeting people that our friends know? Do I already collaborated with those people? And then it builds from there. But at the end of the day, when you have your independence, where you have a community that you can go to, it's like fertile mulch, and that can then you can then use that to create many things. There's a DNA of yours in there mixed with the DNA of everyone who's been by, and you could learn from it. So the first thing is know why you're doing it. Now, as far as timing goes, when I used to do large events, I would plan out the venue over a year in advance. As crazy as that sounds, but if I was renting out a hall in San Jose, California, or in Boston, I'd have to pick dates. I'd usually have 2 or 3 different dates in mind, and I would literally have to rent it out a year in advance, put down deposits, and be ready for that. In the virtual world, those things don't matter so much, but people's schedules do matter. So you want to pick dates that you think may be reasonable, and then you want to build content. And sometimes you can plan things out not so far in advance, like 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out. If you plan it too far out and you're in tech, it may be irrelevant. That so many things change by the time the event takes place that it's no longer that interesting to the people who you're trying to attract. And so it's a timing thing as much as a content thing. But as far as the beginning part of it is that, and the other thing is to have blind faith. Understand that if you believe in what you're doing, it shows. So do not panic. I don't care if you're 10 days before the event, 7 days before the event, 3 days before the event. If you panic, it could fail. If you don't panic, it will never fail. And so it's don't worry about extending early bird prices. Don't worry about changing the date. If you had those dates in your mind, you need to believe blindly. Yes, blind faith matters in the truest sense, that if you don't believe in what you're doing, who is going to? So you need to actually stand there and know this will be. And if it turns out that an event happened and it didn't happen the way you wanted to, maybe it was a learning experience. Maybe you're ahead of the curve. Maybe you want to talk about the future when people want to talk about the present. But you have to stay in touch with yourself and do not stress over it. It is easy to stress over it, but being the calm and the focus, but just to take you through the process, right? It's why you're doing this, the who, what, where, why of the event. Where is it taking place? Okay, let's say it's going to be online. When is it taking place? And then who is going to be part of it? Is it just you? Or are you going to curate a group of people that are going to come and talk? And if you're going to do that, are you pay to play? Or are you going to truly be a content driven? Pay to play means that people are spending money as quote unquote sponsors to buy themselves a speaking slot in your schedule. Or you're going to be focused around certain topics, and you're going to invite the best people you know to come in and speak on those topics. And then it's, how do you make this relevant for everybody, and how do you make it a win-win? So often, people are asked if they're speaking at a conference to promote the conference on behalf of the conference producer, but there's really not much in it for the individual speaker to do so. Some people want to activate, some people just like to give. So some people will promote that they're going to be at an event because they feel it's the right thing to do. But for every, people that do that, there are probably 40, 50, 60, 70 others at the same conference that don't care. So you might want to be creative and think about ways to incentivize everybody so that there's a balance between those who come and speak and promote and those who just come and speak. And then it starts to drive, set of decisions as far as where to take that to the next step. But at the end of the day, if you have a book launch, if you have a product launch, sometimes the best things you can do is to create a conference about you and invite people to come to hear you speak and to hear the vision, because you happen to be the star. It's sort of like being the star of your own parade. You want to be front and center for your own launch, even if it's about you, and it can be about you, and it's fine. You just have to set the intention and understand the purpose, so it's clear what is this about. And I say that because when you look at so many events online, I ask those questions myself. Why is this taking place? Why is it relevant? Who are they targeting? If you have such a wide target area, it could be not relevant for too many people. If it's very narrow and focused, it could very well be quite good. It's one of those things you learn. I've been doing events professionally since 1996, and no matter the platform, no matter the timing, it's all about the people. It's about how you curate it. It's about the value proposition that you put into it, the investment you put into it. Timing matters. Is this going to be a 2-hour event? Is going to be a 3-day event? I am pre-announcing, without saying what it is, but I'm very much inclined in April of 2021 to bring a certain brand back to life. But instead of taking place over a single day, it probably will be taking place over 3 weeks, where it'll be a few sessions each day. Maybe not every day of the week, but a few days each week. I'm taking a new look at conferences. So it's one thing to run a school, which is a global community school where people are able to meet passionate educators. We take subject matter experts who want to teach and with people who want to learn. And that's taking place all the time. And on that framework, so imagine that Pulver EDU was a facility. We had our own building, our own imaginary make-believe property. Well, just like how we use the 92nd Street Y on a rental basis for some of the 140 conferences, why not rent out a part of Pulver EDU to run a conference? So I am seriously considering that, and us to be the first to host a conference at our own place, because if anyone's going to disrupt us, it might as well be ourselves. So I am looking at ways to basically bring a brand back, have a conference around certain topics that are meaningful to me, and bring a global audience together at the same time. That's the other thing about being global that people don't realize is that when I ran the Vonage conferences in the fall in the U.S., I should say in the Northern Hemisphere autumn, Typically, we're on the East Coast. Most of the time, we're in Boston. A few times we're in Atlanta, but it was mostly Boston. Then on the spring events, we're the West Coast. So if you will, the spring events were on Pacific time. The fall events were on East Coast on Eastern time. And then in June, we were in Europe. We were actually we rotated between Sweden, Norway, Finland, and London, and the UK. And I did that for 11 years. So there was a sense of a spring and fall event for US, and then a European event. And then we also had franchise partners. We did an event in Mexico, we did an event in Israel, we did an event in Canada. And so those were geographic specific events. But the internet has no borders. So you got to always think global. That's why I do the Today Meets Tomorrow Zula, not saying that it's just for people in Southern California. And the East Coast Zula is not just for people in New York City and Boston, but we are open to connecting people from all over the world, from any geography. And that's a challenge that if you're building a conference and you don't have a pre-existing community, knowing your customer or knowing who your target audience is key, because how in the world are you going to build a global conference if you don't have a global community? And so the advantage, however, is that everything you do is global by nature, whether you recognize it or not. That today is, if you will, the golden age of conferences, because if you were to tell me that there would become a time in our life when we could produce events that could have hundreds, if not thousands of people attend, well, we don't have to put down deposits a year in advance to find a facility, or for that matter, we can have any dates we want. We don't have to prepay for catering. We don't have to worry about airplane tickets or hotel facilities. We don't have to worry about drayage and everything else, and we could just show up. Wow, you must be in Fantasyland. No, with the pandemic, but it's okay because it works. And so we are actually in some ways living in the golden age of conferences and haven't realized it yet. And being able to bring together the world and to be able to share ideas that are both meaningful and heartfelt at the same time can be positive and great for business exists right now. There may never be another time in our lifetimes to actually do such global events where you'll have the world's attention, except for maybe people right now in New Zealand who apparently don't have to worry about COVID anymore, thank God. But for the rest of the world, which is going through different phases of lockdown or otherwise, we have their absolute attention. It's a wonderful time to provide both good, positive distractions and meaningful, heartfelt content, and hopefully stuff which people could learn from, grow from, and make money from. And so, if you have an idea and desire to be an event producer, now is a great time to learn. And if you have an existing community, not a better time has ever existed than now to serve that community.
And it seems you've just taken this big, not even so much a leap for you, but I love how it's afforded you the opportunity to go back to connecting people, which I know has always been something that you've truly enjoyed doing. One of your passions, communication, connection, etc.
Etc. Yes, this is all true. I live in the etc. sometimes.
Jeff, this has been so much fun. I have to first of all, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey and all the cool things you have going on. And I've got to give a shout out to Lauren, who's been sharing the links for the Zulas and the classes. And I'm doing a couple for Pulver Redo on Mondays. So I love being part of that as well. And I think I know what you were referring to before.
No, actually, don't. I don't think.
Is it no? Is this not what we talked about a couple weeks ago?
There's no numbers in the topic of that we're doing in April. Maybe in June, but not in April.
But you mentioned the April thing as well as what we're talking about in June.
Perhaps. Oh, yes. Maybe so. Then. I love speaking in code in public. This is wonderful.
Well, this is what happens when you have friends come on and then you get to chit chat and have a little bit of, inside baseball in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But as someone who is all about telling people, figure out what you love and find a way to do it, you didn't have to figure out what you loved. You knew it, but you took the opportunity that presented itself and you, as you are known to do, you tiptoed, jumped in.
Yeah. And we'll be in the deep water, and it's okay. We will tread water until we have to, until we
you try. Well, it's the done is better than perfect, right?
yeah,
Start with the idea.
learning that good enough is not a compromise. You think that good enough is a cop-out, but it's like it's in the last 15 years, agile programming is a concept that I understood but never really dealt with. That when you're working on a project and you strive for perfection, not that perfection doesn't exist, but if you're close enough right now, and it's going to take 3 more years to get perfect, and what you have right now, people can play with, let them play with it. And so, I believe in agile conference development, and I believe that we can put things out there. And like in the software world, we used to have things called alpha and beta until Google came along, which ruined what beta meant, because beta to me meant things could break down and it's okay to have patience. And alpha was pre-beta. I mean, like Pulver Redo, Pulver EDU, we're in alpha. I understand that. I mean, the website we have today was designed to attract subject matter experts, teachers to come in and apply to teach. There's work we need to do to make it easier for would-be educators, would-be learners to come and sign up for classes. We know that. I didn't want to take away from the opportunity to teach just because we have to figure out a better way to interface and a better way to explain the courses to everyone else, because we will get that done. In the meantime, we're also learning about just-in-time education, which is fascinating to me, because I thought when people plan their schedules, they know that on Tuesdays at 12 o'clock, they want to take a class with Jeff, or maybe, but they may decide, 2 minutes before class time to purchase a ticket, because we will afford them the opportunity to do so. And so this idea of just-in-time education, I'm sure it has happened to other people, and we're noticing it at our school, that there are some people that will come in and literally, this is what I'm telling you, you got to believe and just be there in that moment and know that whoever comes will come, and it's not a defeatist. You're actually, it's okay. And it's magical to watch people register at the last minute and believe it's okay for them to register at the last minute. I guess it's for those people who are used to watching cable and saying, okay, now I'll buy on demand, I'll watch my movie now. They don't do it 3 minutes ago. They'll do it right now. And I love it. I love things for that. So it's fun. And that's the other thing about conferences, Deb. If you yourself, the one who's organizing the conference, has fun at your own conference, everybody knows. If you're having a bad time at your own conference, everybody knows.
Well, fun is something I talk about a lot, because you have to be passionate about what you're working on, because people will feel it. And if you're having fun, everybody else will too. And when you're looking, and you were talking before about first steps, it's really the D and the DEB method. Determine your mission. Why are you doing this? How is it going to help others? What is it you want to create and bring out into the world? And when you have that foundation, everything that you build on it is set up for success.
Yes, and yes. And I agree.
Well, thank you so much for jumping on and talking to me about events, and also giving me the opportunity to share more about Zula, which I love, which I talk about almost every week, with my listeners community as well. And
your entire community is invited to join us any Tuesday at the Today Meets Tomorrow Zula, and on Thursdays as well, if you happen not to be on the West Coast and like to sleep in a little bit.
Getting up at 5:30 is not sleeping in. Let's just get a little bit clear on that.
I understand. That's called sleeping. I get it.
Yes, we call it sleeping. But what I was going to say is, I will have the links and all the good information in the recap, and you can read this and any previous recaps on the DEB Method blog. And Gold Chat, again, is every Sunday night is the Gold Chat Twitter chat. Every Monday at 4 p.m. is Gold Chat Live. And if you need a little bit of a push into figuring out what your goals are, please check out my book, which yourgoalguidebook.com will take you to Amazon, but really any of your favorite place to buy books should have it or available for order. So we want you to succeed. We want you to go to events. We want you to host events. We want you to have fun. I need to give them a bonus goal. What kind of bonus goal should we give them, Jeff?
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking if you've been thinking about creating events,
Do it.
you should do it.
And just do it. Do not think twice. Make that event happen.
Okay, and if you're not thinking about
Manifest your event destiny.
wait, this one I have to type in. Manifest your event destiny. And if you are I'm going to give a cheat. If you don't want to manifest your event destiny, reach out somewhere to speak at an event.
Yes.
Or just attend an event. But whatever I like that, event destiny is, realize it. That is your bonus goal.
Well, I will give you a bonus goal then. If
Please.
you're at an event and you see someone you want to meet, reach out. Do not hesitate. Do not think you're going to see them a second time. Reach out the moment you see them. Do not be shy and say hello.
I like that. I might make that the alpha goal.
Ooh.
I listen. And also, please join us for Zula. And remember, whatever it is you decide, whether you want to speak at events, attend events, or create events, you can do it. It's in your power. Just do it, go for it, and have fun, right?
Yes, absolutely. Have fun no matter what.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeff. Thanks, everyone, for watching Gold Chat Live. I'm Debra Eckerling, and we will see you next week or sooner.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jeff. Everybody, have a great week, and just realize your event destiny. That is now one of my favorite phrases.